Hi everybody, Kirsty, Goddess of Neptune here. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world, of course. So recording this video ahead of the Sun entering the sign of Cancer, which is taking place tomorrow, 21st of June, 2023. And we're entering a new zodiac season, of course, with the Sun entering Cancer, but we're also embracing the Summer Solstice, certainly for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, the Winter Solstice for those in the Southern Hemisphere. And of course, we're feeling, a bit more vibrant these days. We're moving into those summer vibes, but there is still a lot going on astrologically, as I'm sure you can feel. So I wanted to just bring this astrology report today and pull a couple of cards after as well, just to check in with the energy. So without further ado, let's jump into the chart. Okay, let me bring that one up. Okay, so this is showing the Sun entering Cancer, 21st of June, 15:58 on this chart. Apply your own time zones as appropriate, of course. And this is just to show the moment that the Sun enters Cancer. And we have there 0 degrees there at the top right, 0 degrees of Cancer. Of course, we are currently, at the time of me recording this, in Gemini, but we are moving into Cancer. We are moving into a water sign. So more of a flowy feel, perhaps an emotional feel to this as well. Cancer is very much associated with unconditional love and the divine feminine energy as well. So there could be a lot of that going on in the feels because, we embrace this energy of Cancer. It's very nurturing energy. And coming from that air energy of Gemini, where okay, the soul essence of the cosmos has been supporting us, heightening the energy in the sign of Gemini, to perhaps look at things from a logical perspective, bring balance back in, but also be curious and inquisitive. And now moving into Cancer, there is more of that flow, and perhaps coming from a place of unconditional love for ourselves as well as others, in order to execute the plans that we have. The Gemini season may have shown us we need to strategize in certain areas to make things happen, to bring about those manifestations in our lives. And now this more flowy energy could be assisting us in that way. But there are, of course, other things to mention. And I should point out that this is just the chart showing, I was going to blend my words again. This has happened to me before, and it feels like Mercury is in retrograde. Of course, it's not, but there we are. These things happen sometimes. So what we can see here is a chart that just shows the event. So we won't pay too much attention to the houses here until I bring up the chart, which is on top of the UK's natal chart, because that gives a bit of context for the collective, certainly in the UK, in terms of the transits. But for now, I'm just showing you this as a chart, as an event, okay? And my lovely colourful diagrams on here depict certain things. So, for example, we have a triangle that you can see there, and I decided to do it in green. Perhaps I was guided by the heart chakra there. But what we have is we have a trine, which is a positive aspect in astrology, and that's going from the Sun to Saturn, across to the South Node, okay, and back to the Sun. And because a trine is a positive aspect in astrology, it depicts that harmonious collaboration between these planets or planetary bodies. And for me, when I saw this, I immediately thought of lessons, because Saturn delivers lessons and certainly has been for a time, and is now in the house of the divine, Pisces, in retrograde, having just gone into retrograde a couple of days ago, and will be retrograde until sometime in November. But there is that sort of introspection going on in terms of what lessons are we needing to learn here on a spiritual level because of the Piscean energy, but needing to get that done and get that kind of clear with the Capricornian energy of Saturn, because Saturn can be quite harsh energy, but he is in Pisces, which softens it a bit. It's also a water sign. And in view of that, there is that flow, to use that link with the water signs, between Saturn in Pisces, the Sun in Cancer at this point, and the South Node in Scorpio. All of those are water signs. So this is a harmonious connection between the soul essence of the cosmos, the taskmaster delivering lessons and karma, and also the South Node, which can also bring up karmic situations, certainly past life. So there is this kind of flow to what's going on with the energy when it comes to karmic lessons that we're having to face. And we can nurture ourselves through this with this water energy. We can flow with it to understand, because Saturn in retrograde, a bit like Pluto in retrograde, it's that further introspection and reflection on what exactly do we need to change and transform here? What exactly do we need to learn here? And yes, there could have been a lot of karmic stuff coming up from this lifetime, or indeed past lifetimes. There could also have been illusionary stuff coming up, kind of illuminated to us with everything that's been going on recently. And that may have been hard and difficult, because certainly on previous astrology reports, I've mentioned about, you know, certain squares and challenges in the charts when it comes to karma. And we know that we have a square going from the South Node to Pluto anyway. So there is that challenge when it comes to transformation. But in terms of the lessons, there is that trine between Saturn and the South Node as part of that. So yes, challenging to face what we've got to transform as a result of this, but it's working in harmony with us because it's teaching us a lesson. We're learning these lessons as we go through on this healing journey. And I mentioned about squares there, and the ones that I have highlighted of note, just as I looked at this chart, which are in red. So again, from the sun, we have a square that goes to Neptune, and we also have a square that goes from the sun to Ceres. Now, Ceres is also offering expansive energy, and Ceres is in Libra. So when you think of fairness, reciprocity, balance, and also, you know, Neptune is divine in essence because of being the ruler of Pisces, but can also bring up, from the shadow side of it, because there's light and shadow to everything, those illusionary elements. So there is that caveat here with what's going on, even with the trine, but with the other square going on from the South Node to Pluto, there's also this message that from the soul's perspective, because the sun, you know, that's the soul essence of the cosmos, from the soul's perspective, it may be challenging to overcome any sort of deception or illusion, or even just embracing more of that spirituality, because perhaps that's a tough lesson in itself, to learn and discover more about ourselves as divine creators of source energy. And the Ceres energy is expanding that soul essence of the sun being in Cancer. So, you know, that can be challenging, where we want fairness, we want to achieve fairness, and maybe we want to achieve it fast. And this is about needing to go with the flow of the Cancerian energy. And at this point, the sun is the only planetary body in Cancer, but it's a pretty big energy to have in that sign. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up the chart that shows the UK's chart as well, which I tend to do in my readings if you're not familiar, just to give some context, because this is like a freeze frame of the cosmos at the time of the sun entering Cancer. And apologies, I've drawn all over it, obviously to highlight what I've just shown you, but also some additional things that came to me as well when looking at the two charts together. Okay, so we have the sun over here, and this is where we will look at the house system, because it's based on the natal chart of the UK on the inner wheel, and the outer wheel is the sun entering Cancer as an event. So it's looking at how the planetary transits of that moment could impact the UK's natal chart as a collective. Yeah, so we've got the sun over here, 0 degrees Cancer, right on top of the UK's North Node in the 12th house. So immediately I was reflecting on this, considering the North Node being our purpose, our true north, our guiding way, our guiding light, you know, in that sense. 12th house being hidden, subconscious, is also the spiritual house, because it is, of course, the Piscean house, the 12th house. There is wisdom to this as well. But there could be something that is subconscious here, and the sun entering Cancer is almost giving that sort of boom, heightening to our purpose, but it could be a hidden purpose. So maybe as a collective, we are just discovering what our purpose truly is. And that's why the Cancerian energy is important, because it can nurture us through this. It could be a shock for a lot of us. Now, in the UK's chart, Pluto is also in the 12th house. So deep transformation that's hidden, deep-rooted transformation. And Mars is there as well. So the masculine element within the collective, because we've got masculine and feminine within all of us, however we identify, whatever gender, etc. So there needs to be that balance. And this is weighted more towards the masculine in terms of those hidden elements, maybe subconscious elements of that warrior spirit that needs to transform, naturally evolve, but on a subconscious level, because it's the 12th house. And there is some purpose in that, but the sun is now heightening that energy. So I found that particularly interesting because there is that exact conjunction going on. But also referring back to where we saw the trine, and we've got, so the triangle's in the middle there. We've got the sun, of course, as I've just highlighted, and we've got Saturn over here in the 9th house. And then we've got the South Node down here in the 4th house. So South Node in the 4th house in terms of our foundations. So anything karmic, past life related, or maybe illusionary within our foundations. Saturn in the 9th house. So these lessons or perhaps karmic aspects coming up within our house of discovery. So as we've been going on this quest of spiritual evolution and we've learned more about ourselves, perhaps now we are recognizing the karma attached to some of the choices that maybe we've made leading up to that point before our awareness, you know, this illumination of who we are as a soul, as a sovereign soul, as a divine soul, could have brought up a lot of this that now we've got to face, because we are discovering more about ourselves all the time. We're always evolving, of course. But this is about, you know, it's the Sagittarian house, the 9th house. So what do we want to aim for? What are we trying to achieve and discover on this journey? Where do we need to learn certain things? And Saturn being here is helping us in terms of delivering lessons. So that's why we can see that, yes, that trine between the sun in the 12th house, transiting through the 12th house, Saturn in the 9th, and the South Node in the 4th, could be allowing for karmic situations that have come up for us to really address and learn from, that have maybe shook our foundations in some way, because it's enabled us to discover more about ourselves, has then further enabled more opportunity for learning about ourselves when it comes to our spiritual self, Saturn in Pisces, and the soul essence of expanding with that on a deep-rooted level, 12th house, when it comes to our purpose. So there is an example of how it can work in harmony, but not without its challenges, as I've mentioned before. So we've got the sun in square to Neptune, of course. Neptune is also in the 9th house, and the sun in square to Ceres in the 3rd house. So expansion of our communication that's fair, balanced and reciprocal. 3rd house with Ceres there in Libra. And Neptune, and as I say that, my throat chakra went, you see, there you go, communication. So Neptune in Pisces as well, in its home. But that square there with the sun, again, we don't want to be under any illusion of what we're discovering. We don't want to deceive ourselves either about what we're discovering about ourselves. We're learning. So it might be challenging because our soul is discovering perhaps illusionary stuff that's been coming up, or perhaps areas where we have deceived ourselves, or looking at the light side of Neptune. This is about discovering, you know, our true spiritual essence. And we're learning about that. Saturn is there, house of the divine, getting us aligned with our spiritual self. The challenging aspect with the communication, as I was mentioning, because we want that to be fair and reciprocal. We want to be able to express that in that way. And just some challenge there with that square energy, but also feeling that, because I can see that Lilith is there in the UK's natal chart, 3rd house, admittedly in Virgo, but still in the 3rd house. So, you know, there could be some kind of wounds or doubts coming up regarding our expression, or maybe we've not felt able to express ourselves fully before. And this is all part of this learning and discovery. So this is all happening as well. Now, the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the other trine. So we're going to go back to the positive, harmonious aspects of astrology. And I haven't drawn another triangle on here. So we've just got the one, but the other trine basically connects Vesta up here in the 11th house with the green line just above it. Okay. Pluto over here in the 6th house, now in retrograde. And Ceres. Okay. So we've got, there's that expansive energy going on anyway. There's challenges with the sun because of the square, but there is that trine with regards to Vesta, which is our sacred flame, what lights us up, what sparks us. And that's in the 11th house. Of course, it's there with Uranus. So change. What do we need to change in accordance with our worth and values when it comes to connections with other people? Uranus in Taurus in the 11th house. Vesta is alongside in Taurus. So regarding our worth and values in our connections with others, what lights us up? What really sparks that flame within? So when you think of vibing with other people in terms of, you know, kindred souls, you know, groups, communities that kind of spark that passion for whatever you might hold within, this is where the change can come in, because maybe more of that is needed. And with that trine with Ceres going on, there is that expansion of communication when it comes to what we want to do and what we need to change. The challenge just may be in that being able to flow in terms of the soul essence and needing to connect with our intuition when it comes to that. So knowing, feeling into what we need to change, because change is needed, and it's been needed for a while with regards to the UK's chart for the 11th house, with Uranus being there. And of course, with Pluto also in this trine over here in the 6th house, Pluto was in the 7th house of relationships. And that's why previous astrology reports, I would mention that there is certainly emphasis on change and transformation, deep transformation, when it comes to relationships and connections with others. The 7th house is not restricted to that. Of course, it's relationships with people, places, things. But because of what was going on in the 11th house as well, there was a big link there. Now that Pluto is retrograde, he's fallen into the 6th house. And that relates to our daily routines, our schedules, can also relate to health and well-being, of course, as well. Being of service, you know, in that way is the Virgo house. So the retrograde, okay, there's been some focus on deep transformation with relationships, people, places, things. Now he's retrograde in the 6th house, okay. What needs to transform in our schedules, our daily routines, in order to promote that better well-being for us. And that's why there is that trine to Vesta in the 11th house, because maybe what we need to change in our daily routines is to connect with more people who spark that fire within us, because it's not fun being around people that dull the flame within. We want to have that flame lit, don't we? So that's where the trine can help. And Ceres, that expression, can help with that as well. So that's why they work in harmony together. But very interesting that Pluto has now moved in the retrograde back into the 6th house. And this is why astrology is fascinating, because it now gives a different focus to what Pluto is trying to say to us. Let's go within now and really think about what needs to change in our daily way of life. Schedules, you know, and how that can impact. And we know we've got stuff in the 10th house, which is inner authority and work. Chiron's still there, of course. And Chiron is conjunct the UK's sun, both in Aries. So that empowerment of the soul when it comes to our inner authority in work or just in social status is part of our healing journey. This empowerment is helping us with our healing journey and vice versa. But also the North Node is conjunct the UK's Chiron. So this relates to purpose when it comes to worth and values, and our healing journey when it comes to our worth and values. So understanding what our purpose is, what our role is in society, in life, with other people, is connected to this as well. Very much so. And then down here in the 5th house of love, we have Pars Fortuna conjunct the UK's Pars Fortuna and also the UK's Saturn. So this could be a very fortuitous moment when it comes to love, and it doesn't have to be with other people, but remember that the 5th house is opposite the 11th house. That can bring challenging energy, it can bring push-pull energy. So changes in connections with others that we've been called to do because of Uranus there, changes with regards to connecting with those that light our fire within rather than dull our flame within, and recognizing that there could be natural karma associated with that because of Saturn being in the 5th house in the natal chart. But also, you know, the fortune comes here from recognizing that coming from a place of unconditional love is what's going to bring us fortune. So rather than seeing it as opposite energy working against one another, we can instead bring back the harmony and understand that the fortune can come when we come from a place of love, and by recognizing that those connections with other people can change for our highest good if we come from a place of love. But it needs to be from a place of love for ourselves as well as other people. We can't neglect ourselves in this. We're on this healing journey of empowerment, of sovereignty and divinity. We're being asked to be called in line with our divine truth, you know, our spiritual soul essence, divine source of creation. So, you know, we have to not neglect ourselves anymore. And that's very important to mention. Of course, loving connections with others can be very fortuitous at this time if there is that understanding that change is needed in some way regarding worth and values. Perhaps boundaries need to be set, because as we evolve, our values may change, or those around us may no longer be in alignment with our worth and values. And that's where the change may be needed. Mercury is still transiting through the 11th house, of course, in Gemini, in his home sign, and we'll be moving into Cancer very shortly, within the next week or so. I think it's the 27th of June. So at the moment, there is that air energy to support communication where we need to communicate in that way, logically, but also from that balanced position, looking at both sides of the equation as well. And before I end this, I will just say as well, for a time, we've had a lot of energy going on with the planets and the asteroids in Aries and Taurus. But now we've got a lot in Leo transiting through. The moon will be in Leo as well at the time of this, so when the sun enters Cancer. And we've also got Venus and Mars there, as well as Pallas and Lilith. So there is a lot of feminine energy within the 1st and 2nd houses here on this particular chart. So 1st house of the self, 2nd house of worth and values. There is a lot of fire energy there, and there's a lot of feminine energy, again, that can support us through the changes we need to make, the empowerment of self. The sun will be in Cancer, so again, heightened feminine energy, divine feminine energy. The moon being in Leo, so we could be feeling quite expressive when it comes to love. So that also marries up with what's going on in the 5th house and the connections that need to change, etc. But also, because it's fire energy, we may simply just be feeling a bit fiery. And it could be that now there is this balance coming into check between Mars and Venus, because they're closer together and they're both in the same sign. On this chart, of course, they're in 2 separate houses, but they're 4 degrees away from each other in here. So it's almost like the masculine and feminine are getting closer together. And the moon in Leo could be that sort of fiery sort of, you know, want to get things done. This balance is coming into check and change is needed, and feeling quite fired up about it. Let's not forget the other side of that could be fiery in terms of argumentative, but we don't want to labor on that too much. This is more about expression of love. You know, Leo energy is very much about that expression of love, that expression of soul energy, of love, joy, and abundance, but also, you know, the inner lion within. We are being asked to be courageous in these moments because we need to make changes. And that can be hard, especially if we need to detach from certain things. But it's all part of that discovery that we're on with what's going on in the 9th house and Saturn being there to help us through. This is all to help us, okay? It's not to hinder us. And it can feel challenging, but there are other aspects that are working in harmony for our highest good. So I'm going to leave that there. And I'm now going to pull some cards. So I've got the Lightseers Tarot deck and the Astro Codes, just to get some additional guidance in this current moment, of course, recognizing this is for the collective, and these messages are not going to resonate for everybody. So take what resonates and leave what doesn't, as always. And energy is fluid as well. Okay, taking the cards in this particular moment in time. So let's see what we have for the collective, please, for the sun entering Cancer, for Cancer season. That one wants to come out. Okay, those 3. Oosh, oosh. Okay, hidden energy is the Hanged Man in reverse. And in reverse, the Hanged Man looks to be in the upright position. That's in the hidden energy on the bottom of the deck. I'll come on to that in a minute. So we've got swords, pentacles, wands, and cups. We've got all elements here, and we've got a major arcana, as well as the one on the bottom of the deck. I'll come on to what the major arcana one is. Many of you won't be surprised. So we have the 9 of Swords here. This is that stressful, overthinking, sleepless nights, anxiety. It's one sword away from the 10 of Swords, which is that kind of ending of a painful cycle where it's just got too much. There's too much going on within the thoughts. It's overthinking, it's stressing. Okay. And also, I'm just picking up from this because of this, the red, you know, the vibrancy of the red, of not feeling grounded in the moment. Too much up here, not enough down there, you know, in terms of being grounded and rooted into Gaia. So it may be worth, if this is resonating for you, to do some grounding exercises, but this is overthinking. And there could have been a lot of that going on because of the changes that are needed, and also the Gemini energy, let's not forget. It can work for us because it can help us strategize, but it can also promote the thinking. And sometimes we don't want to be thinking too much. We need to feel, and then we need to think to plan accordingly. Hope that's making sense, I'm saying it. But we have here the 4 of Wands, we have the Knight of Cups in reverse, and we have the 3 of Pentacles. Now, the 3 of Pentacles is about working together. It's collaboration. It's also about building a foundation, but often we need others to do that. 4 of Wands is about that harmonious feeling, and it can represent union. Now, we have Mr. Knight of Cups in reverse in between those two, and he's the one in reverse. So there may not be much movement towards emotional fulfillment at the moment. And that could be what's causing this feeling. But recognize that from building a foundation, and even though there's other people here, this is about building a foundation. We need to do that ourselves. So, and that's when others can then come into our life to assist, to help in some way. But ultimately, it starts from us. And that's where the self-love is as well. So Knight of Cups in reverse. Okay, we've got somebody here who's quite romantic. And, you know, this is very much that sort of romantic love, offering of love, but also movement towards emotional fulfillment, Cups energy. in reverse. So if you're dealing with somebody and you're wondering why they're not coming forward, it could be indicating that some kind of foundation needs to be laid first, and movement out of this energy is needed as well, because these are opposite energies. And this is why the major arcana is this one, the Tower. And let's not fear the Tower. The Tower serves a purpose. This is about unexpected change, major arcana, so it's big change, but it's necessary. It's Scorpio energy, so it's like Pluto, the deep transformation that's needed. Now, because of the Three of Pentacles, and I mentioned about foundation, this is about allowing something to fall that was never a stable foundation in the first place. And that could be with regards to somebody who's not forthcoming with their love. That might be where the change is needed. Or it could simply be that in order to allow love into your life, change is needed. Pluto's asking for change. That's where the transformation comes in with the butterflies. And that's when a foundation can be built and union can then come into play. But cycles need to close out first, cycles that are not serving, because that's what's causing the stress and anxiety, holding on to cycles that are not serving us. We need to build a foundation that's strong and stable. But maybe the one we currently have is not, and that's why it needs to change. So on the bottom was the Hanged Man. So in reverse, in the upright position. But I always feel when I look at this particular card, and this is Piscean energy, this is about enlightenment. So looking at something from a different perspective, because the Hanged Man is looking at something from a different perspective, that brings the enlightenment that's needed. And it's very much associated with the heart chakra there as well. Underneath that, the Three of Cups. So there we go. That's the kindred souls. That's what I was saying in the astrology about being around others that spark that flame within, not the ones that dull the flame within. And you see, then we've got the Page of Cups, but he is in the upright position. So if you are dealing with somebody who's not forthcoming at the moment with romantic gestures or expressions of feelings because of a Tower that's needed, this is saying that there is that kind of pure, innocent love just starting out. You know, it's Page energy, so it's not as mature as the Knight energy. So think of like new love, or if you're in a relationship, that reinvigoration of love, but a new cycle of it, if that makes sense, is in the upright position, but it may feel too good to be true. But that's underneath doing things that light you up with other people, that connect you to what you love. And to get to that point, you need to look at your situation from a different perspective. Let's see what the Star Codes Astro deck has as a final. Do you know what? Every time, Venus. Thank you. It's funny, when I was getting the deck ready earlier, and I was doing my pre-shuffling, the Moon card kept coming out, and on that particular card it says perception. So that's another way of kind of saying that, isn't it? Look at something from a different perspective. Your perception might be different. And bearing in mind what I was saying about all the 12th house stuff, you know, subconscious stuff that could be hidden, the Moon can often indicate something that's hidden. And that's why we need to trust our intuition in terms of, you know, what messages we get, how we feel, etc. And, you know, recognizing that the Sun moving into Cancer, that is the Moon's home. So very much timely messages, really, but perception, how we perceive something may not be the reality of it. So that's why we need to look at something from a different perspective to gain insight into what this Tower might be for us. Because of course, it's not going to resonate for everybody, this message. We have Leo. So all that Leo energy that was in the chart, shine. We need to shine as a beautiful sovereign being that we are. And then we have Mercury, messages in reverse. So being open to receive messages, okay? And that could be from our own intuition or our spirit team, from the divine, from source, being open to receive those messages, not to kind of block that flow. Okay, one final message, please, for the collective. Thank you. That one flew out at a force. And on the bottom, ninth house exploration. So I was mentioning about exploring ourselves, discovering more about ourselves. And there we are. So we've got Juno. So this is about partnership. So it could be literal partnership here, because we have seen a couple of people cards in the cups energy. So it could relate to that. We know that there's stuff going on with the 11th house for the UK's collective, so connections with others, and the fortune that's attached to the 5th house of love as well. But this could also be that partnership between the masculine and feminine energies that are coming together in the Leo energy, because we've got Leo there as well. But that's beautiful, because that is saying that there is partnership, whether it's within ourselves, that harmony between masculine and feminine, or if we're experiencing that physically in our 3D reality from another, being in partnership with another. There we go. Right, okay. So I'm sending you 11 blessings. Happy Cancer season, and of course, happy solstice, whether it's summer or winter, depending on what hemisphere you're in. And I'll be back with further reports, but until the next time, sending you all my best. Thank you. Bye.